podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
A media prediction, podcasting, social media, new media. 2025 is the year that they make the major pivot and put the rest of the mainstream and legacy media establishment behind.
The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
I'm going to go and follow back up from last week's episode when we talked about the presidential election. And I tried to keep it as apolitical as possible, as we really made a focus on the numbers and just what it meant for people to go ahead and latch on to podcasting, and for new media that matter, and that the media establishment that's been out there, okay, network cable television, corporate owned, newspapers, magazines, irrelevant for this presidential election cycle. But this is going to leave a lasting effect on the rest of everyone out there. So in every aspect right now of the news media, you could say for music, you could say now for television and movies, it's obvious that we're seeing an erosion and there's going to be a change. The cultural change has happened. The other thing too is that we have the adoption and the habit of how people go ahead and consume their media from music, movies, TV, and radio, right? But we're not going to talk so much about radio today. Maybe a little bit later on. I got a couple of stories I'm going to bring up about that. But when I look at what we have right now, I mentioned it, that 2025, next year, new media with music streaming, social media influencers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, there's a big pivot right now that is happening as we speak. This presidential election created the pivot because people are going to get latched onto the fact that, and again, there's so much that's being written about it. If you look for any Google searches right now on podcasting, they make up the election and they're still talking about it because as everybody's kind of lingering past what happened, I want to get past all that. I want to talk about the media consumption now because of the audiences we got from it. Now, Pod News put out some great information that they came away with from Edison Research. Now, we know that this isn't going to be everything, but they did some metrics for the third quarter, so July 23rd to September 30th, 2024. If I wanted to go through and look what the other numbers are across the board for interviews and what was really popular, okay, we can go through and we can look at a couple of places where it happens. If I just look for the Joe Rogan Experience and I look for the episodes that really stood out the most and have really been quite powerful for him, all I got to do is this. If I look at some of the episodes he has right now, put it like this. Just in the last couple days, among the most popular episodes that he's had, the Donald Trump podcast with Joe Rogan already now has 50 million views, and was on for 2 weeks. Second most watched show on YouTube. I don't have the numbers when it comes to audio, but that's huge. J.D. Vance, 17 million views. Elon Musk, in this election cycle, 16 million views. That's a lot. Something about politics that really does bring out quite a bit of people to watch these shows. So get on YouTube, and keep in mind that Joe Rogan has only come back to YouTube after the deal with Spotify was switched around. And it's normal for Joe Rogan to go and get interviews that will hit 15 million viewers on YouTube, not counting the audio audience or who was listening over on Spotify. But now we're here and we're looking at this. I'm like, wow, great numbers, huge numbers. But still, the number one podcast he's already had so far was Bob Lazar, Jeremy Corbell, 62 million views, and it was 5 years ago. So another big, huge, but that's the audience he has right now. And he has 18.5 million subscribers on YouTube. I couldn't even tell you how many there are right now over on Spotify, but that's the audience. In the campaign for both presidential candidates, Donald Trump appeared on, and his reach was 23.5 million viewers to Americans 18 plus. For Kamala Harris, 6.4 million listeners 18 plus. Okay, if you want to put those numbers together, 23.5 million, that's like an NFL game on a Sunday. Let's say Monday Night Football game. That might be the highest end of a Monday Night Football game. There are no award shows on television right now that reach those ratings. There's nothing but live sports that reaches those ratings. Let's just be honest with that. Like, that's NFL playoffs size audience. 6.4 million still. I mean, there's only maybe one or two network shows that are scripted that even get that right now in all of network TV or all of cable TV. But no one's reaching that right now. But easily reach, and that's on average. That is on average weekly reach of podcasts when candidates appeared. So Edison Podcast Metrics, they put this in per Podchaser. And they made the point that where Vice President Kamala Harris was on 8 shows, former president, now President-elect Donald Trump was on 20 episodes in this time period. Then one of the things you got to make mention of among the podcasters that were featuring Trump, you look at the fact that the streamers, the audience that they had, all male mostly, predominantly male, under 35, notionally politically curious, sometimes puerile and unserious, sometimes spiteful and scabbers. They're trying to say that there's a very casual male audience that's watching these podcasts wherever they're finding them. And by the way, not only will you have these shows that would be featured over on YouTube, you would also see them on X. Like, I always see some of these episodes I would see on X because it would just be rebroadcast there. Someone would go and repost them. And the New York Times really go through, and they talked about all the different shows that were being brought on that were featuring, the president-elect now on these programs. And the idea was, according to the New York Times, they said that skip most, the new strategy was supposed to be skip most mainstream media and head straight into the manosphere, the loose caucus of podcasters, live streamers, and social media stars, and other outlier media figures who were heavily monopolizing online discourse lately. Now, that's not just the election. Okay. So I'm going to take that little portion right there and just kind of circumvent it a little bit. So podcasters, live streamers, social media stars, and outlier media figures, alternative media, let's just call it that. That is the new media today. That is the media we're talking about right now, of the media for news, for entertainment in some cases, that are surpassing anything you're watching on network TV or cable TV. I mean, if you're looking for entertainment and you're not looking for on these other channels where, for the most part, these podcasts are usually available for free with ad support. Then you go into streaming, which people might have some ad support on those for their subscriptions, but for the most part, they're not. The thing is, there's an interest in these audiences here because all these shows have advertisers. Now, they're monetizing probably by subscriptions for the fact that if they have anybody that's in a super chat or whatever it is for YouTube show or for TikTok or for X, just some amount of, listeners or viewers are getting on, there's a monetization for that. YouTube in the same way for the audience. And then you have the ads embedded, whether it's programmatic ads or they're the ads that are affiliate linked with promo codes that are provided by certain sponsors that basically go to all podcasts. It's basically your ad representation firms that are reaching out to these hosts and saying, okay, they have a reach. We'll give you 30-40% cost per measurement. Let's go and see what you can get for this. Here's your promo code. Put it out there. Let's see if we can get some people to go ahead and buy some product. And that's what happens with loyalty to some of these others. And you try to see what happens with that. Now, in the same vein, Kamala Harris would go on other shows that also reached a younger demographic. It might be a little more of a diverse demographic, but it was a younger demographic nevertheless. Because that's where you got. When you have Caller and Daddy, Club Shay Shay, or Breakfast Club, just the thing is, you got a younger audience that's tuned in. That's the part. Even when you had the Oprah Winfrey Town Hall, that was online. That was not on television. But it's one of those things where everybody was looking to watch these programs online. Even with some of the programming that we had that was from network TV, like say the Univision Town Halls, they were available on YouTube. I mean, I watched all that stuff on YouTube or find it on X afterwards. And then not to mention the clips that would come up as well all the time. And we're starting to see more of a aspect that we're seeing more people that do go ahead and catch clips. They might not catch the whole episode. Remember, in some of these podcasts, especially with these over here, some of the ones they had, Theo Vaughn's this past weekend, Andrew Schultz's Flagrant, the Nelk Boys, Bryson Shambo's Break 50, Aiden Ross's live stream. All these, they're long form programs. And the same thing goes for Kamala Harris's programs because those are all hour long for the most part. People are listening in for long form content. They like the casual conversation. They feel like, and this is what I always talk about with podcasting when I've worked at my full-time firm, is that you're kind of eavesdropping into a very intimate conversation. We're listening in. We like this. And when you're going into that long form conversation, people get very relaxed and you start hearing more things about somebody saying something that really does resonate. You get to go ahead and bring the guard down. It's a much different aspect than 7 or 10 or 15 minute hits. And for the most part, cable or network news really didn't benefit from it. I mean, for them, okay, maybe the election got some interest from them, but then we started seeing ratings for all these different networks dropping off because interest is gone. But these podcasts and all these other programs and all these other influencers that they're talking about here on this New York Times article, they're still going to be relevant. They don't take time off. Like when the holidays come here, I don't think there's going to be a lot of them that are not going to stop putting out content. At least for yours truly, the King of Podcasts, I keep doing content all the way through the holiday season. I don't stop. I don't take a break. And we could do that because we're not necessarily behooving to like having some big production staff or having a lot of people with us to do this. Some of these shows actually do. I mean, obviously, but it's what it is. And remember, it's the access. We're all watching this on our phones. Maybe not even so much on tablets or desktops, but we're watching it on phones. Maybe we're casting it to a TV, but we're watching on the phones. We are all accustomed and very comfortable watching on our phones on a 5 to 7 inch screen. We're not even into the big screen anymore. Like that's the other part. How many times do you have your television on? Whatever channel you have on. I can't tell you how many times I'm not paying attention to TV. I have it on as just noise. And that's it. Not much else for anything else. And I am used to it because also I can tell that the programming on network and cable TV is starting to get to the point where it is just noise. They're not even necessarily giving us any content that you need to go ahead and put your phone down and watch. Listen, even with streaming, what is one program right now that you're watching? Whether it's streaming or whether it's a movie, because unfortunately, even at movies, I catch myself grabbing my phone. I just do. I was watching Weekend at Taipei with Luke Evans and Sun Kang, right? Not a bad movie, but it was a lot of slow spots. They were trying to put a love story together. Not necessarily does work in those movies, but for a roughly 90-minute movie. But I was catching myself getting on the phone, flipping through a couple of things, websites and all, watching through X or whatever, putting up clips. All those different things. And I would just go on and I mean, I'm still watching, but I'm still basically still watching on my phone. I'm still like, my neck is down watching into my phone. It's just what we do. But there, I can guarantee you, there are not a lot of shows you have right now. In terms of quality, okay? I think about it like this. In terms of quality of what shows are out there, is there one show you have right now where you absolutely need to go ahead and peel yourself off of your phone, put it down? Like, okay, you're going to charge it. You're going to put it in another room. You're not even going to go and pay attention to it. And then you go watch something and you focus on the television just on that. Or maybe you're talking to somebody else, but still, you don't have your phone with you. You're not watching anything online. You have it all set aside. And you're trying to watch a movie at home, right? Or a TV show. And tell me how many of you right now are actually just able to go and still do that. Because I've lost that ability. It's gone. And then on top of that, for some of you out there, if you are listening to music, you're streaming, or if you're not, you're listening to a podcast or an audiobook, which is kind of like is a bit of a variation to a podcast. What's what we're doing? We're listening to voices, we're listening to music, we're listening to content through our phones all the time, online, accessible whenever we want. We can watch it whenever. We don't have to sit down to the TV in our house. We could take it and do anything with it. However we want to go portable. We are portable. We are out there. We can go. It's like that now. And all these shows, because of the fact they're on these platforms, makes it available. Sure, streaming is available everywhere else. We can watch on phones too, but like it's also some of the same thing, right? Because if you're watching something on streaming there, you can't necessarily put it in picture-in-picture and then keep doing something else. Not necessarily. Even sports, the same thing. Like it's that. I mean, sports, I think, is something that you can just put your phone down and watch. And if you do go and pick up your phone, it's during during a commercial break. But that's pretty much it. But it's really simple to go and see why that all works out. And some of these shows that we have that are part of the entertainment lineup here are really good. Like, Andrew Schultz and Flagrant, they talk about here, it's just between talk show and a parody of a talk show. And it offers like a standard talking headshot and one much more up close and almost uncanny Adult Swim style. Andrew Schultz attempts a similar balance with questions, blue jokes and all, and learning semi-honest attempts to ask questions on various subjects. But they make the point in the New York Times article that these shows are long, an hour, 2 or 3, only use a handful of camera angles held for lengthy stretches of time, which makes them draining, easier as background viewing. Ads are inserted automatically by YouTube, often in the middle of conversations, disrupting the flow. Okay, so the New York Times writer here, he's all upset because it's not being run like a television program. Okay, I used to think it was an issue when I used to watch like TikTok videos for the first time, and they got jump cuts. No, it's normal now. See, I'm sorry, but that's a normal thing now. The way some of the things that are being done, all right, you might get upset. The same writer, I guarantee you, probably gets upset when they see microphones instead of lavaliers, right? Microphone hanging off a tripod, or just a microphone that's being held, whatever it is, instead of lavaliers, and they're in a nice set, right? They're all kind of thinking that everything should be set in a certain way. Oh, we should have a news desk. We should have the graphics all flashy. No, we don't need anything of that. Because right now, podcasting gives us such a very simple format. But the one thing we've had that has really been important, and this was part of the pandemic, by the way, okay, folks, COVID really did give people a chance to really hone their craft on podcasts, because everybody started doing it and started realizing we don't do Zoom calls, right? You don't do Zoom calls for these shows. Agreed. And that's the part that, and look also when you look at the awkwardness when you see anything that's on cable or network news where somebody's on through a Zoom call and it just feels wrong. Microphone sounds bad. Like there's a thing where those shows should sound better, look better, right? If you're getting that budget and you have that kind of a setup, you got all these people in their team to be able to go and produce a good program, then do that. But these people are doing it within a very set place, right? They're not worried about the camera angles. Oh, we got a technical director. Okay, switch camera 2, stand by camera 3, take camera 3. We're not doing that shit. No, you want that? You want to watch that? You're going to go find sports. Okay, maybe an award show. But yes, ads inserted automatically. We are used to the YouTube ad stuff. Unless you want to go ahead. See, it doesn't matter about the ads and the proper placement. See, they're annoying on purpose, Mr. New York Times writer, because YouTube wants you to go ahead and buy their premium plan so you don't get ads on it, right? That's the part. It's meant to be a nuisance on purpose. So that's why they do that. And then they say, oh, lengthy stretches of time to see these people on TV. Well, that's just what it is. It's talking heads. But, for some people it works. But remember, these are also podcasts. And plenty of these people will listen to these shows. They don't need to go and watch. It's perfect for us. Thanks to iPhones and thanks to all the Android phones and just smartphones in general, the creation of second screen viewing, we've all kind of adapted to that. And then we're doing the same thing where we're online on a desktop, or I'm on a phone and I'm also streaming on there too, or watching something else as well. We're all doing that. Now, the other part is where these podcasters or these live streamers, they are kind of taking us back to a time where, it's being goofy. It's just having fun. And it's like giving us the real point of view kind of feel to it. So when they talk about Aiden Ross, he offered a Tesla Cybertruck as a gift, and they were both getting in the car, and they're going to listen to music together. Bryson DeChambeau played a round of golf with Trump, and, you see where Trump played, and, they were just having good old fun playing a game. It was just like something you would watch on TV, and like something almost like ESPN's, or what's the TBS thing, that celebrity round that they always do every year. I forget what they call that. But either which way, they talk about that this generation of young viewers viewing politics primarily as lighthearted smack talk, a replacement of decorum and ethics with backslapping and flickers of vulnerability, a clear path to wide-scale public recognition without checks and balances. The sense of you just hang out long enough, nothing can hurt you. This is John Caramanica, who's pop music critic for the Times and the podcast. So he wants it to be like, and this is where some people, now I don't want to put a political slant on this, but what I do want to say is, I think people need to go ahead and get under the impression and say, okay, that people's viewing habits are changing a lot. It's all different. I'm Gen X. I've gotten very much used to watching all these shows and what I'm watching pretty regularly. No problem. I've adapted to it because I've been watching YouTube since 2004 or something like that? I don't know, earlier than that. I don't know, it's like we're talking about the 90s. But we have all these different shows and all these different things we're watching, and like the cameras are much better, the microphones are much better. Everybody in COVID really learned to get better sound, better visuals, and everybody's recording good content because it all looks good. And remember, there's other shows that are out there that, I watch all the time. Like if you want to watch any of these other shows that are on YouTube or wherever you want to watch podcasts that are out there, you want to catch David Pakman or Young Turks, or you want to catch Pierce Morgan, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, you want to catch Don Lemon, right? You want to catch all these different folks out there, Roland Martin, or it's anybody, pick it. There's a lot of shows out there that are in podcast form, or they might be on other channels and multi-channel distribution, but you can catch all their content pretty easily. It's cool like that. I like it. And that's the part that really needs to be understood about what a significant change we're seeing right now in the lineup of things and where the audience is, because there's so much more. Podcasting is obviously getting more into this because now Spotify made a big change recently. And as we're recording tonight, episode 357, Spotify has made their biggest update to podcasts. Now they have a new monetization program for video podcasts, improve analytics and audience growth tools, new ways to get your podcast discovered on Spotify, and a new evolution of the name and brand of the creator platform. It's now no longer Spotify for podcasters. It is now Spotify for creators. A new chapter in their ongoing mission to give creators the tools to grow, monetize, and manage the show, whether it features audio, video, or both formats. And they're setting new features that will be making it easy to be successful on Spotify, no matter what type of a show a creator has. Awesome. Now, this is the presentation they actually had, and they talked about it, that creators are experimenting with different formats to draw in more fans and audiences and changing their behaviors by watching more of their favorite content instead of just listening. For Spotify podcasts, more than 250 million users have watched a podcast on Spotify, and nearly 2/3 say they prefer podcasts with a video option. And podcasts and their creators evolve, so does Spotify. They're also putting together a Spotify partner program, a monetization program for creators in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, which will be unlocked. And it's going to be built to open more ways for creators to earn for their work, since they know that it's top of mind for many creators today. Yeah. The creators want to have a better way to go ahead and make monetization. And just doing traditional advertising can go so much. But if their audience is so good, they should be rewarded for getting that audience in, and they can go ahead and get some kind of monetization back because of the ad revenue that will be coming in from that. Like even for what I'm getting right now for my own content, Spreaker's actually been amping up the ad placement. So if you hear more ads here on the program, that's because Spreaker's just offering it as such. And I understand that. And it helps me because I get a little bit more in the bank. So that's nice too. Now, this is part of the ongoing podcast trends and statistics of 2024 going into next year, that if corporate continues to do things where they're going to have layoffs, right? And news media, newspapers, magazines, radio stations are all getting cutoffs right now. They're all getting changes right now. If they're not making enough profit right now to their shareholders, then you're starting to see cuts. So like the news media, you're starting to see cuts all across the board. Newspapers, magazines, because of AI hemorrhaging. I mean, it just does. And then you're also talking about the fact that radio folks being laid off, they're going to try to go to podcasts. And among other people that might not have the platform as they did before, but they still have a name, then they'll go find a podcast to build up for themselves, trying to continue their audience and continue to go and build who they are. And there's quite a few people that do really good in podcasting to find a way to go and continue to go ahead and make themselves relevant. And they just find another part of their career. I mean, there's a lot of shows that I ain't getting a chance to even catch right now in terms of podcasts. Like, I keep seeing clips from It Is What It Is, Cameron and Mace, which is, those guys are hilarious. Like, some of the clips I've seen on there, very funny show. And it's their voices are so unique on that program. But you hear them, it's just good. And also, the language content's no big issue. So if everybody's cursing or whatever, no big deal about that. There's no rules. People like no rules. No time limits, no none of that. People like the freedom of entertainment like that. We're not construed to that. We don't have to watch what people are just giving to us. And that's the part where we really enjoy. And when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to television, they need to figure out what people are watching and what people are consuming right now that they're losing their audience to. Because I think some of the content they put out there is not doing it anymore. I'll tell you this for a fact. So CBS Studios now took over Paramount Television's content. I've been watching right now. My father likes to watch all the CBS shows. So the FBI shows, FBI and FBI Most Wanted, or Tracker, and some of these other shows, the content they're putting out there, some of the topics, some of the episodes they put out there, they're procedurals, right? They have new episode roughly every week with a little bit of an arc that kind of ties all the episodes in. The episodes have been very weak. And we're right now into November sweeps, which used to be an important ratings period. But right now, no. What they're going to put out there for us, not that good. Not that good. It's kind of weak. But that's normal. Because I think people are just realizing the best days of great content are kind of starting to be behind us on all these streaming channels. I mean, you can do stuff. I mean, look, there's a story right now about Disney that is planning to go and spend $24 billion on content next year. They'll have rate hikes of the NBA and NFL, which will drive the slight spending increase. But yes, $23.4 billion this past year they've spent on content. But 2025, it will be $24 billion. And when you look at what they're trying to put together in terms of that. So it's a new NBA contract, which they had to double their previous fee from previous, and the launch of the ESPN flagship streaming service. 40% of Disney's content is on sports and sports content right now. So the investment on content, according to Bob Iger, he says they're going to be focusing on big films, which will give us the ability, quote, to dial back a bit on some of the spending and investment in series. And that blend of spending between films and series, we believe, gives us an opportunity to increase our margins and grow the business. They're going to go for movies, big budget movies, big blockbuster, like exhibit movies, right? That's the plan they're going to do. So fiscal 2025 will have a number of key launches for Disney. The Marvel films Captain America Brave New World, The Thunderbolts, and live-action remakes of Lilo and Stitch, and Snow White. Netflix right now currently spends about $17 billion on content, and executives are saying that they're going to be keeping basically the same amount of money on content for next year as well. They're not going to go much farther than that. So also the other areas when it comes to Hollywood. Movie Guide actually put out a story about is the future of Hollywood in peril, because we might have done okay with movies this year. Like some of them have really just not done well. If I look for the numbers, I have not looked at the-numbers.com, just look at the numbers they have for so far this year in the box office, but it struggled. Let me tell you, September, October struggled. Like right now, Venom: The Last Dance right now into the current state, which is the last big superhero with the basically comic book movie. It's right now $119 million gross so far, and it's made $406 million total. That's it. But everybody's kind of like been struggling this year. The annual box office right now, in your current setup, Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing right now, domestically, $652 million. By the way, Disney owns that and Deadpool and Wolverine with $636 million. And if I'm right, okay, so Inside Out did make over $1 billion. Deadpool and Wolverine, over $1 billion, $1.3 billion. Despicable Me comes in third. Beetlejuice comes in fourth. I never liked that movie. It was just not that good. $450 million for that movie. So, it did well. Who knows? They're going to probably do something to try to bring it back. Probably. Dune Part 2 came out in March, and that came in grand total $709 million. We should see more of what happens with that, what they're going to do with it. Twisters, Godzilla vs. Kong, New Empire, or Godzilla and Kong, Kung Fu Panda 4, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes round up the top 10 so far this year. Bad Boys Ride or Die, $400 million. Quite good. Quite interesting. But that's pretty dead for the year. I mean, when you look at what we've had of the weekend box office, I mean, we've had movies that just kind of like went across the board. So the new Mean Girls start off the year in January. Argyle for a couple weeks, which sucked. Bob Marley One Love, which was like mid. Dune Part 2 for 1 week. That's it. Kung Fu Panda 4. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire for 1 week. Then Godzilla and Kong the New Empire. Civil War for 2 weeks. Challengers, Fall Guy. Like in the middle of the start of the summer, it was weak because you just had a new movie out, whatever. Bad Boys Ride or Die had it for 1 week. And then Inside Out 2 had it for 3 weeks. Despicable Me for 2 weeks. Twisters for 1 week. Deadpool and Wolverine had the, 8 of the 9 weeks from July to September. July to August. And they just killed it. Then Beetlejuice for 3 weeks. Joker failing badly. By the way, that movie has not done well. $1 billion the first time. $206 million right now. That's pathetic. And I think they put $200 million this time in this movie. That's wild. That's wild. That's it. So, Joker, Voila Adieu, bombed big time. Venom the Last Dance right now is the last 3 weeks has been number one. It's not been a good year overall for all this. And when you look at all together right now, the box office has gotten $6.9 billion so far in tickets sold. It's going to cross $7 billion. That's it. Not much. If we look at 2023 and how that performed in comparison, 2023 they grossed almost $9 billion. We're going to come up short. And I don't know how well we're going to see the numbers come up for the box office to close out the year, but we know they have some releases still left. A couple of big ones. Real ones coming out. I don't think it's going to do that well. The Rock movie, I don't think it's going to do well at all. I mean, they're thinking $30 million for the opening weekend. We'll see if they do it. Yeah, Gladiator 2 and Wicked on Thanksgiving weekend to build off of that. Moana 2 will be also the week after. Well, it's be officially Thanksgiving weekend, Thanksgiving Friday. Right? And then what? Gladiator 2 and Wicked are on Thanksgiving night. I think it is. Or Wednesday night, excuse me. And then December, there's not much in this. Let me tell you. It's kind of dead. Craven the Hunter, December 13th. Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, and September 5th that's September 13th. Then Christmas weeks, you got Homestead, Mufasa, The Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and then Baby Girl, A Complete Unknown, The Fire Inside, and Nosferatu to close out the year. There's not much here. They're hoping that Wicked and Gladiator and Craven and maybe Lord of the Rings will carry over into next year. I don't think they're going to reach $9 billion. I don't think it's going to happen there. I think Wicked will do really well. I expect that. But I don't know what else they got. I think Gladiator and, it's got to be Gladiator and Wicked. It's got to be those two are going to really put it over the top. Those individually should do at least something. I mean, you would think Wicked should really kick ass. They put so many promos on that. Like the trailer has been over and over a lot. And you can see Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. They're all doing like promo tours and press tours all over the place, all over the world. A lot of red carpet films and screenings and all. So it's all out there. We'll see what happens. Anyway, back to the movies. So Disney still has an issue right now where Bob Iger is still trying to kind of get things back together and trying to steer the ship back up after Bob Chapek, who kind of really struggled for the most part with Disney, and Bob Iger had to come back. Paramount under 3 co-CEOs right now for leadership and merger with Skydance Media. So we'll see what happens right now for what that merger is going to look like. Fox right now is in a messy state. Rupert Murdoch looks to secure the future of his empire. In jeopardy due to irrevocable trust that could lead to the breakup of Fox after his death. And it's what they're going right now. Like all these big companies right now are also kind of like going through their own instability right now as we speak. Now, when it comes to the areas of music, we haven't talked too much about it. We did talk about Spotify for creators, which is really good for those for podcasting. But in the music sense, what can those musicians, artists, songwriters, what can they do to make themselves money in this new age of streaming? Well, SoundCloud is coming out with a new monetization feature as part of their enhanced upload experience that's just come out. So the new feature eliminates multiple steps previously required for artists to monetize their content now. And it will say that the updated monetization system will integrate directly into the upload workflow, enabling eligible Next Pro artists to activate revenue generation. That's nice for them. See what happens with that. I had a radio, so I'm going to drop it. But one more show I got over here is from Columbia Journalism Review. Lauren Watson's actually talking about the fact of a story that says, still shooting ourselves in the foot over and over. The thing is that with the news media we hear about a lot right now is that when the election happened, it's obviously something where at the current moment, over 50% of 70 million odd voters gave what they thought was what their choice was. If you want to go and get a survey of like what people think about certain things, over 170 million voters. And over 50% of them, they basically gave a mandate on various things when it comes to culture and when it comes to other things that are going on around their world, right? The bottom line is that where were people getting their information? And the part is that they were talking about the fact that the media establishment is complaining about people that are catching their media from other people that are not them. Alternative media or social media or podcasts. Well, they're all kind of figuring out. So they talked to a writer with the New Yorker. Her name's Claire Malone. And when they asked her about certain things when it comes to media right now, she's saying here, first of all, when it comes to like certain things where the pollsters for this election might have not gotten the correct information when it comes to like who people thought were going to win the election. So like if there was a particular story or narrative that's being reported by the news media across the board and people did not listen to or believe what the news media has because there's an integrity problem, then everybody went along and did something else. So Claire Malone says that it's just sobering as a journalist to watch over nearly a decade of your life, people fall further and further away from quality news sources. The media was always mistrusted. I talked to people who didn't trust it during the Bush administration. It's just a maturation from which we are detached. And then she also talks about the fact that, do you find any perspectives change at the end of your conversations with people, that they're reevaluating their own allegiances to the news? Or do you feel like they walk away and they're still in the same place? And Claire says that she has a point of view which is that newspapers and magazines and the mainstream media are flawed human enterprises, but they're the best sort of information. And also that they're not fake news. So she wants readers for her articles that they come across a piece, it's going to be a very slim segment of the population to come away with a respectful but clear-eyed view of a story and news and information they're reporting. If she's talking to people, she'll get them to talk at length about their views and where they're going, but she doesn't think when someone comes away from the story, they're rethinking their views, and I think it's a fool's errand at this point to think you're going to change people's minds. I guess it's like an explanatory writer style, documentary, which has its limits. I'm sure that some people reading would say that's bullshit, but I do think there's something important about capturing views. So when you're talking about newspapers and what their impact is supposed to be, they talk about the idea about how their story should make an impact. And only a very small fragment of the population is going to read a 10,000 word piece or even a 1,500 word piece. So it's important to think about how stories are digested, and that newspapers should be thinking more overtly and strategically about how it's disseminated to a 5-minute cable news segment, a 1-minute Instagram reel, or a 30-second TikTok thing, she says. We have to think about how it moves through the bloodstream of the media, because there are so many people, particularly those that are 30, who are just not subscribing, let alone reading traditional newspapers and magazine articles. Otherwise, we risk being public intellectual reporters just running for each other, right? I don't think any of us really want to do that. Well, here's the part you got to understand too, is that she says, okay, find your audience, serve them, stay in business. Hopefully your reporting gets out there. But I'll tell you one of the biggest problems here, Claire, is the immediacy of social media. I can't tell you how many times, if you try to watch something on cable or network news, how long it takes for them to actually report on something. If it's something that's like an official report from an official news source, that's one thing. But when people are able to find something investigatory and they're finding news and they're realizing, oh, this just happened. Like, people can actually watch things as they go on. Like the other day, actually, I was watching, there was some kind of DEA, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, kind of like sting operation, something like that. I was at the Wawa right by the Palm Beach Airport. And I was just, kind of driving around, getting some coffee. And I come outside and I see there's a DEA agent out with a rifle. And him and a couple other guys, they are bringing down 2 guys. And you're hearing the whole, get on the ground now. Don't move, right? And you're seeing this, and we're watching it all. And all these Uber drivers that are all kind of like sitting by, lingering around, they're all pulling out their cell phones. They got their smartphones out. They are all filming. It looked like damn paparazzi out there. Like 20 cameras, whoop, and they're all filming. The thing is that people are actually getting their news so quickly somewhere else. They talk about the fact that X is one of the best news platforms out there. Well, yeah, because people are going to it a lot. And we are constantly looking for information on there. I mean, I could go right now, whatever's trending, whatever information I find, I can't tell you how many times I find information or news quickly. And then also the part, for some of the people that are on there that you might follow, they now get to pull full news stories up there. Or you can subscribe to their feed and then get extra content. But let me tell you, I look at so much that's going on where we're getting information so quickly that the legacy media, they're not even, your 2 sources, this and that. Well, maybe not necessarily, but like, they have certain stories they will put out, and they might have the exclusive to it. But how exclusive are they now? Anything? And they're not, if they get to the story first, they have made mistakes on being the first of the story, right? Especially on breaking news. But like, at least with social media, if something's breaking, we're seeing different news sources, or we're seeing different people that are putting up pictures or videos or footage or something like that, or getting information. Yeah, we get to disseminate ourselves. But the part is that if we're expecting to go ahead and wait on these mainstream news sources to get the news to us, they're taking too long now. We don't have the attention span anymore to wait for them to kind of get the information and to verify. They're not going to do it anyway. And for the fact of the matter is that we don't need them to go and do it anymore, because we're more than happy to go ahead, catch everything that's going on as it happens live. And when it happens live, then we're saying to ourselves, okay, some things are going to be misconstrued. Maybe some information will not be correct, but we're going to see it raw. We don't need somebody to go ahead and disseminate or filter it out for us. We'll just take all the content. Long, uncensored, uninhibited. Come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, the content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.